Hello everyone, it's Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this chalkboard art inspired 4th of July card. I'm going to be using several sets to make this card today. I'm going to use the new barbecue saying stamp set, using a sentiment from that set, some of the images. I'll also be using the meetup stamp set, lots of images from there, some stars from the Big Day stamp set, as well as these holiday word dies. These are awesome dies. They are great sentiment dies. They're very clean and simple and perfect for lots of different cards. I really like these sentiment strips. Okay, so now I'm going to start with a panel. So this is an A2 panel, so it is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, made of black cardstock. I've got a piece of acetate that I made. It's an acetate grid. I'm just using that to help me get my sentiment from the barbecue saying stamp set. I'm trying to get that sentiment nice and centered. The only problem I'm having here is that my stamp is really sticking to my acetate and not to my Misty. Never had that problem before, but it was sticking quite fierce to my acetate there. Okay, so I am just about ready to stamp this. I've put down some anti-static powder, and I'm going to ink up the sentiment with embossing ink and then stamp it here, and then I will pour on some white embossing powder, and then I will heat set this, and then we'll move on to some other images. So I stamped my sentiment first because I am going to stamp a wreath of images around here, and I find if you stamp your sentiment first, it's a lot easier to create a centered wreath. So that's why I start with my sentiment first. Okay, so this flag I'm going to stamp is from the barbecue saying stamp set. I'm going to stamp this in embossing powder, or I'm sorry, in embossing ink, and then I will pour on some red embossing powder. And I will stamp this image 3 times in total, so I have 2 more to go after I do this one. I'm doing each one separately, so I'm stamping it, pour on the powder, then heat setting it, because I will for surely mess it up if I try to do all 3 at once. So yeah, that's why I'm doing it separately. So I'm going to heat set this, and then I will stamp the second, pour in the powder, heat set it, and then I'll do the third. Yes, I have, I will definitely fudge it up somehow if I don't do it each one individually. So I'm just going to pour on the red embossing powder for the second, then heat set it. So the images for this that I've chosen, the barbecue sayings and the meetup stamp sets, they are perfect, I think, for this chalkboard art technique. Ever since these sets were created, I've been dying to do this, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But 4th of July was like the perfect excuse. So I sat down and I created this card, and I was really excited with how it turns out. So I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did when I was making it. So I finished all the flags. Now I'm going to start with some of the images from the meetup stamp set. I'm going to pull off the steak, the hamburger patty, the tongs, and the corn on the cob. And then I will pull out that barbecue saying stamp set and pull off the hamburger, the completed hamburger, and the ketchup bottle. And now I'm going to kind of arrange them around, filling in the gaps between my red embossed United States flags. And then I will, once I kind of get this wreath completed, or at least all these images around, I'll fill in some of the gaps with some of those stars from the Big Day stamp set. So I'm pulling out the stars now. So those stars were originally one stamp, so those 3 stars were connected, and I just snipped them apart with my scissors, and now I'm positioning them in some of the open spaces to kind of make a more complete wreath or ring. And once I get that star there, I'll fold over my Misty here and pick it all up, and I will apply some more embossing powder just to make sure or some anti-static powder, anti-static powder to make sure the embossing powder doesn't stick to any areas that I don't want it to. Ink up my images with some embossing ink. And then I will stamp this and then emboss it in white embossing powder. So fold it over here, stamp it, and then pour on the white embossing powder. And these images, again, are just the reason why I couldn't wait to do this is they've got these great bold lines, which I think work perfect for this chalkboard art-inspired kind of look. I just think I don't know. For me, for some reason, they just scream chalkboard art, especially the barbecue sayings. That's all I could think of when I saw the set. Okay, so I shook off some of the powder, and I did kind of fudge it up. See, I told you guys embossing powder is a challenge for me. When I was taking off my card, I kind of the magnet slid into the ink, and so when I poured on the powder, I had some stray powder stuck. So I just cleaned it up real quick with my brush. And now I'm going to heat set that real quick. And then we will move on to, actually, I'm going to stamp some more stars. So I'm going to heat set this real quick, and then I will stamp a few more of those stars from the Big Day stamp set to complete more of that wreath. So that portion's done. So I'm going to cut here too. I've already got it, my panel mounted in my MISTI, and my stars already in place. So I'm just inking them up here, stamping them down, and then pouring on the white embossing powder. Then I'll heat set it, and then I have 2 more stars to do after this. So just have one little spot there that I want to fill in. So I just used my acrylic block this time, which was actually easier for this than using my MISTI. Stamped it, and then poured on the embossing powder, and then heat set that as well. So now the stamping portion of this wreath is all done. Well, actually the stamping portion of this whole card is all done. Now I've got a Prismacolor colored pencil. This is a blue. It is PC903. And I'm just coloring in the blue portion of the American flag with this colored pencil. And I really love coloring with colored pencil on dark colored cardstocks. The colors end up so vivid and vibrant. I really love doing it. Especially Prismacolor, I found that they work really well. I haven't tried any of the other brands, but I really, at least out of the name brands, I really do like the Prismacolor though. I haven't wandered far from these. So this next step I'm doing is really what bumps it up and makes it have that chalkboard art look. So I have a Prismacolor white colored pencil, and what I'm doing right now is coloring wherever the light should be hitting the image. I'm coloring in that area to brighten it up, and it basically creates like a powder look, so it looks kind of like chalk powder. On this ketchup bottle, I'm doing cross-hatching gradation to kind of give it some volume so the image looks more round. And this is kind of thinking backwards because our paper is dark as opposed to our paper normally being light. Our paper is dark, so the more that I color, the lighter it's going to be, the more white it's going to be. So I'm coloring actually wherever my light is hitting. So seems a little bit backwards to how we normally color, but really you can't mess this up because you're just getting some color on there, or some this white on there just to mimic some of that chalkboard powder. And I just think just a little bit in some sections just really helps to make it have that chalkboard look. So right now I'm just coloring the tongs and finishing up on the hamburger patty. You do have to be careful. My warning is here that you have to be careful not to color on to the embossed areas, because you can't actually remove some of your embossing. If you color too hard or you kind of bump up against it, you might chip it. It's not too like you can bump it a little bit, but sometimes if you're not careful, you might chip away. But it's not a huge problem because you can fix it simply with your white gel pen. So right now I'm adding some white gel pen accents. I am filling in the stripes with this white gel pen. Some of the areas are I'm actually able to get down to the paper, so they didn't fill in, but a couple of the areas, the stripes filled in with the embossing powder. And surprisingly, I'm able to, with my gel pen, to go right over those embossed areas. No problem. The ink sticks. So I was really pleased because these stripes really help these flags. They really complete them, I think. They really make a big difference, this little detail here. So I'm finishing up the last flag, and then I will add some stars to the blue sections. They're really just dots. There's no way I can make stars that small. So they're just dots to mimic the stars. And that little bit, that last detail, really helps these flags. I really like how they turned out with the gel pen accents. Okay, so now we're going to move on to making fireworks. So right now I've got my white Prismacolor colored pencil again, and I'm just kind of laying the groundwork for my firework, just mainly just figuring out where I want them to go and kind of putting some lines there to kind of identify that that's where I want one of the fireworks and the angles I want them to kind of flow. And after I've got them kind of figured out where I want them to go, I'm going back in with my colored pencil and making some darker lines. And these are just arced lines, nothing fancy. We're not trying to go for super realistic. We're trying to go for like a chalkboard look, you know. They're not photo realistic fireworks here. So this was really easy to do, really easy. Don't be intimidated by this. This was simple. And after I've made some of the dark lines, I'm going to go in with my white colored pencil again. I'm just finishing up here some more of the dark lines. And I will go really quick strokes. So really quick light pressure strokes. Oh, I just did that. Really quick light pressure strokes with my white colored pencil to make really thin lines. And then I'm finishing up all these fireworks with my white gel pen. And I am going over just to this. What this does is it makes them more white, more vivid white, because the white pencil just kind of makes more of that chalky look, that powdery look. And this white gel pen will make some darker or whiter, I should say, lines that mimic more of the outlines and all the white embossed images. So it just makes a more cohesive look to the wreath. So that's why I'm doing this last bit. I did find that my I had a little hard time because it's very waxy, where I colored with the colored pencil. So sometimes my gel pen would kind of jam up, or clog up. So I would just have to clean it every once in a while with my fingertips, kind of clean the tip, and then I was good to go again. Okay, so that is pretty much done. I'm all done with the fireworks. Pretty simple. So I've taken the Happy and 4th of July die from the Holiday Words die set, and I've die cut with that die out of blue cardstock 2 portions of the sentiment, Happy and 4th of July. And now I'm taking some liquid adhesive in my fine tip nozzle bottle and putting little drops and then adhering it down to a strip of red that I just cut with my scissors. Red, well, it's not actually cardstock, it's actually a paint chip. But I found it matched my embossing powder the best. I just had it in my stash, so that's what I used. And then I adhered, so then I trimmed down my panel down 1/8 of an inch all around. So it's 1/4 of an inch shorter, so it's 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I adhered it to my A2 black card stock card base. And then I adhered with the liquid glue adhesive the sentiment strips. And that's it. Those are my 2 cards. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions about the products I use, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more